Hey guys, welcome back to Fun Cooking. Today, we're going to go on a whole new adventure someplace we've never gone before in this kitchen. We're going to take these empty jars right here and turn them into sauce. So I hope you'll come back and join me on this new experience. So the first thing we want to do is inspect our tomatoes. Make sure there's no blemishes, gouges, bug holes, anything like that. And then we want to wash them in just plain cold running water. A lot of people will use vinegar and soak them in a vinegar water solution. However, I've read that any debris or contaminants can enter into the tomato through the stem. I don't know, I'm not going to chance it, so I just wash them in under running water. Next, I'm going to take this tool, whatever it is. So after we remove the core, that's what it is, the core, the stem, whatever. We're going to take a sharp knife and we're just going to break the skin at the other end, creating an X. What this is going to do when we submerge it into the boiling water is help the skins loosen from the tomato so they come off a lot easier. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is remove the core from several and then go back and cut the X's. That one was in there deep. Now we'll cut that X. Okay, I know you don't want to sit there and watch me do all of these tomatoes, so I'm going to go ahead and core them and cut the X on them, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so we're on the last tomato to be cored. There we go. We're just going to finish cutting the X's real quick. So that gets all of those, with the exception of this one. When I was coring it, I discovered something not so nice. Let me see if I can show this to you. You look inside there. It looks like it's rotting from the inside out. I don't know what that's about, but we're not going to use it. Now that we have all of that done, we are going to wait for our pot of water to come to a boil, and then we are going to blanch these tomatoes for about 30 seconds or until the skin starts to ripple and crack a little bit, and then we'll remove them and dip them into cold water to stop the cooking. And so when the water gets ready, I'll bring you back to show you that step. Okay, so as you can see, we have reached a boiling point. So I am going to place these tomatoes on my spider and lower them in gently, because personally I don't like being scalded. Now, while I could probably fit all of the tomatoes into this pot in one batch, I just feel that would lower the water temperature too much and it would take too long to bring it back to a boil. Once the boil does come back, we're going to leave them in for about anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. Then we will remove them and put them in our ice water. So, I'll bring you back when the water boils. Our tomatoes have started boiling and skins are cracking. I actually went ahead and did both batches of these before I brought you back. And I'm submersing them in this water over here that's not quite as cold as it was, and rolling them around. And then in this one, this water is just a little bit cooler, or it was, now it's kind of warm. But by doing this, we can take our skins and just peel them off without a whole lot of trouble. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but on some of the tomatoes, quite a bit of the pulp is coming off with the skins. So we're not going to discard that quite yet. I'm going to finish peeling these, then I'll bring you back to show you what we're going to do with the skins. Okay, so I've peeled all of the tomatoes, and now I'm just slicing them in half and in half again. The really larger ones I quartered from the halves, like this, just so they will fit in our machine. So now we have all this juice that we will not have to cook out of our tomatoes. Now the next step. I'm fortunate enough to have this attachment for my KitchenAid. Let's grab another bowl, put it over here, and this is basically a food mill. It's going to remove all the seeds, any leftover skin that I missed, any pieces of core that's deep inside that we couldn't cut out. However, remember all of these skins that still had pulp on them? I'm going to run them through first, just to show how much pulp was left on the skins. So in goes the skins, normally the trash, and out comes the sauce. And this end, the skins that have been totally cleaned of any pulp. And we probably have a 1/4 cup of extra liquid here that's not going into our sauce that needs to be cooked out. Look at all the pulp in here. Can you see that? All of that sauce we would have thrown away with the skins had we not done this. So now we'll run the pieces of tomato through. And you want to push slowly with the plunger or you'll end up with sauce on your face. Okay, so I'm going to stop for now because I know you don't want to watch me do this for this whole big bowl of tomatoes. It's things you want to remember. If you're using the KitchenAid, run it on a slower speed. Sure, you can crank it up and push the tomatoes through extremely fast. However, the faster it goes, the more you will lose. So it's better to go low and slow and get everything extracted from that. So I'm going to finish doing this bowl and I'll bring you back when they're done. Okay, so we've got all of our tomatoes processed through. Now we're going to take our waste and run it back through because it's still quite damp. Okay, so I believe that's all we're going to get out of that. So we're going to take off the lid. And we're going to scrape down the screen. Scrape everything out of the shield. You don't want to lose one drop. This is a lot of work for what we're getting. I'm going to loosen the collar and pull off the cone. Pull out the auger. Now what I'm doing now is I'm just looking to see if any of the waste fell into the bowl when I was pulling off the cone. It doesn't appear that any fell in. So over here I have the crock pot. I'll pull that closer. And right now we have 6 cups and I've already put 8 cups in here. So 14 cups of sauce, juice, whatever you want to call it, from 10 pounds. Well, we had one bad one. Just under 10 pounds of tomatoes. Stir this up. I have it set on low. And so I'm going to let this cook down. However, I think I want to add some things. Good tablespoon of salt. Probably a teaspoon of pepper. Throw in some garlic powder. A little bit more. A little bit more. Probably a tablespoon of garlic powder. We're going to mix this in. I'm going to put the lid on it. And I'm going to turn it up to high for about an hour just to bring it close to boiling. And then I'll reduce it back down to low and let it cook overnight. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll let that do that and I'll see you in the morning to see how it looks. You guys want to come help clean up this mess? Anybody? Oh well. Okay guys, it's been about 20 hours since we put our juice into the slow cooker, and we finally got that mess cleaned up from earlier. Well, it didn't take 20 hours to clean up that mess. But let's make a new one, okay? So let me remove the lid and show you where we're at. Our juice has reduced by about half. You can see it's, now that's hot. You can see it's nice and thick, but it's kind of grainy. So I've got the immersion blender, and we're going to stick this in here and whip it all up and make it nice and smooth. And apparently foamy. I think that looks good. Really can't tell through all the bubbles. We're going to go ahead and scoop it out. Now I did decide to put about a tablespoon of chopped garlic in this while it was cooking to give it a little bit more flavor. And I did taste it for seasoning, and it used a little bit more salt, but I'm going to wait until I actually use the sauce to decide how much salt to put in it. Now if you don't have an immersion blender like I use, you could put this in a regular blender or even a food processor to smooth it out. So what do you guys think? Does it look good? I'm just looking through it to make sure there's no big clumps of anything. And I'm not seeing any big clumps of anything. Looks good. Now I said I let this cook until it was reduced by about half. We started out with 14 cups of juice going into the slow cooker, and right now we're at 8 cups. So almost half. Originally my plans were to can this. I was going to do a water bath canning session. However, with just 8 cups, I think that will be enough to can. So now that I've messed up this measuring cup, I'm going to put it back into the slow cooker and keep it on warm until I get my jars ready. When I get those ready, I'll bring you back and we'll go ahead and can this up. Okay, so we've got our jars all ready. They just came out of the dishwasher, so they're nice and hot. We have our rings here, and hold on. Here we go. We have our lids, which have been simmering but not boiling. You don't want to boil them because you'll weaken the seal around the edges. So the only thing that I don't have is my canning funnel. I have no idea what box it's in my storage shed across town. So we're just going to have to pray for the best, I guess. Our tomato sauce has been staying warm in the slow cooker. Our jars are hot from the dishwasher, and we have our boil bath pot over here. I am going to carefully add the sauce to this, and then I'm going to use a paper towel, dip it in vinegar, and clean off this top edge of the jar. We don't want any food or oils lingering there to prevent a good seal. Okay, so now that I've showed you that, let me show you the right way. Here we have citric acid, because we want to bring up the acid level in the jar, and a little bit of salt for taste. So we're going to take a jar and add a 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid, or you can use a tablespoon of lemon juice, and I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just going to pour this over. Luckily, I processed an extra jar. And we want to fill this to within 1/2 inch of the top, which is right about there. And then we're going to wipe the rim, as before, making sure there's nothing that's going to stop the seal. Then we're going to take our magnetic tool, because you really don't want to reach into scalding water to get your lid. We're going to place that on top. And then we are going to apply a ring to finger tight. And then I'm going to use a jar lifter and set it into my water, which contains a rack that keeps the jar off the bottom of the pot. If the jar touches the bottom of the pot, it's more than likely going to crack. So we're going to take a jar, put in our citric acid. And I'm going to actually put it in the other jar as well, so I don't forget it again. And our salt. And then we're going to ladle in our sauce, trying not to make a big mess. We're going to wipe the edge of the jar. Find our tool, grab a lid, and place it on top of the jar. You really don't want to touch the jar or touch the lid, because any oils on your fingers may prevent it from sealing. You just want to finger tight, don't crank down on it, because that can cause the lids to buckle from what I'm told. I'm going to place that in here. Then we're going to fill the next jar, because we've already got our citric acid and our salt in there. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but right here on the edge of the rim, we do have some tomato juice, tomato sauce, food, which will prevent it from sealing properly. So we want to make sure we get that wiped off. If you get it on your towel, fold it over so you're using a clean edge. Okay, and then our tool to grab our lid, place that on, apply the band finger tight, lift it, and place it in the water. Okay, so I'm going to have to use this first jar, but it'll be alright as long as I clean that lid, or that rim. So put our citric acid in, and our salt, and that's a little warm.
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, Alexa's not sure.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
It's okay, I got it. Okay, so it looks like we may not have a full jar here. Maybe. It's going to be really close. We're going to have to scrape them edges if there's any hope of getting this jar full. It's hot. And definitely don't do that, because you will definitely contaminate the edge of the jar. So we'll make sure we wipe it off. And I realize this jar isn't as full as it needs to be, but I'm going to go ahead and process it anyways. And then after the jar cools, I will just make sure I use this within the next couple days. And I really don't need to process this, but I want a balanced load in here. And I need my water to come between 1 inch to 2 inches over the jars, which it is not. So I'm going to go get a little bit more water, and I'm going to make sure that I don't pour this on the jar, but off to the side. Okay, so I'm going to turn up the heat and put the lid back on. And once it starts boiling rapidly, we're going to start timing it for 35 minutes, since these are pints. If you were doing quarts, it would be longer, but I don't know that number off the top of my head. So I have a question for you guys. Leave the answer down below. This lid that I've had sitting in simmering water, that the gum is softened, is it safe to use at a later date, or do I need to toss it? Let me know. Leave the answer below in the comment section. So I'm going to let this process, and I'll bring you back when they're done. Okay, so that's our timer. Alexa, stop. So I put a towel on top of this because it kept spitting on me. So our 35 minutes are up. I'm going to turn off the flame, and I'm going to remove the lid. And we're going to let this sit for another 5 minutes. Alexa, 5-minute timer.
5 minutes, starting now.
So in 5 minutes, we'll come back and we'll show you the next step. 5 minutes are up. Alexa, stop. Okay, so our 5 minutes are up. We're going to carefully lift these out, making sure not to tip the jars, and we're just going to ignore the little bit of water on the top. The seals are very fragile at this stage, and we don't want to take the chance of anything disturbing that seal. And as you can see, I've placed them on this towel. You always want to place them on a towel. Placing them on your cold counter could cause the jar to shatter instantly. But we've left space a good inch. Did you hear that? A good inch between the jars to allow airflow. We're going to let these sit here undisturbed for at least 12 hours until they come back to room temperature, which at that time we will check to make sure all of the jars still have a concave, non-flexible top. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And guess what I found while these were processing? Brand new funnel, canning funnel, never used. Where was that an hour ago? In a box on the shelf. So if you like this video, click that thumbs up below. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Leave me a comment why you liked or did not like this video. And I know some of you that are canners may mention the fact that I did not debubble this before putting the lids on. Since there's no big chunks of food, it's really not necessary, but I in no way take responsibility if you get sick because you didn't do it. So always debubble before you put that lid on. Okay guys, so our waiting time is up. These jars are cool to the touch, especially this one here in the back. Since I put it in the refrigerator this morning when I woke up, you know, this was the one that wasn't quite full, and I will just use it this week sometime. The rest, including that one, are all solid tops. There's no clickety-clack, so that tells us that everything is sealed. Now what we want to do is loosen the bands and take them off and store them without the bands. That way, if the seal ever does fail, the lid is going to be able to pop off and let us know that something has gone wrong, because it's not going to smell all that great. Whereas if we keep these on and the seal fails, the lid isn't going to be able to release, and it could reseal, and we would never know that the food inside the jar is spoiled until we opened it and maybe smelled something. Who wants to take that chance? So take these off and don't use them until you get ready to can again. So in the meantime, we're just going to put these 3 on our shelves and put this one in the refrigerator. And when I get ready to use one, I'll bring you guys back and show you how I use it. So until then, we'll see you next time.